Thanks for tuning in to OPM Live, which is an extension of Ordinary People magazine. I am so happy that you all decided to join us today. And we have an awesome show. But before we get to that part, let me thank our sponsors. Our sponsors are Vimashi Enterprise, Southern Eagle Music Group, Issa Ray's Vision, and Gemstones and Trinkets. We thank them so much for being a sponsor of our show. And as I stated earlier, we have an awesome show. We will be talking to co founder and founder of Our Periods Matter. It's a great organization. So, with that, let's get started. I am going to bring them in. Hi, Jackie. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing fantastic. And Jackie Edouard, she is the founder of Our Period Matter. The co-founder, Zakia Haughton, she will be joining us later. She's out of the country, and so we're trying to get a great connection. So as soon as she come in, then we will bring her in. Okay, so Jackie, tell us a little bit about yourself and how did our periods matter? How did it get started? Wait a minute. I think I see Zakia, and perhaps I can bring her in. Okay. And so we brought in Zakia Haughton. Your phone is a little mute. So when you get ready to speak, you can unmute yourself. Okay. Now we're ready. Go ahead, Jackie.
Yes. So my name is Jackie Edouard, and I'm based out of Orlando, Florida, originally from New York. And I moved down here about 3 years ago. So that's 3 or 4 years ago. That's about the same amount of time that OPM, which we call OPM for sure, Our Periods Matter. That's about, right, I know. That's about the time that we have been in existence. So right now, what I currently do, I'm an online business project manager. I have my own project management agency with the team, and my team and I, we provide brand management services to our clients. So ultimately, what I like to tell people, what we do is we just help our clients enhance their online presence. So anything that involves like their branding, their graphics, or social media, or their podcast, those are the things that we take care of. And that's what I do outside of Our Periods Matter. So that's what I do.
Okay, so how did you come up with the name Our Period Matters, and how did the whole organization come about? What brought it about?
So the name was actually created by Zakia. She came up with the name, and how Our Periods Matter came about. This story is, I love this story so much. I love our story. But it was 2016. And Zakia and I, we knew of each other, but we weren't best friends yet. So we knew of each other through a mutual friend. And, we got more acquainted on a trip to Jamaica back in September 2016. And about a month after we all came back, Zakia, she's from Philly originally. And then when we launched OPM, she was living in Atlanta at the time. So the time that we launched OPM, which was around October, November, she was getting ready to visit family in Philly for the holidays. So she was there in November, the time that OPM like literally started. So she was in Philly at the time OPM started, and I was in New York getting ready to move to Orlando that December. And Our Periods Matter, well, it was inspired by a video that we saw on social media. So literally a month after we came back from Jamaica, this is now October, I came across a video on social media showing how homeless women literally in our city were struggling to take care of themselves as it pertains to their menstrual hygiene. They either have to choose between food or they have to choose between getting menstrual hygiene products. But nonetheless, they did not have what they needed to take care of themselves. And this was literally 25 minutes from where I'm from. And I was just like, how come I didn't know these were real situations happening to real women that are in my city? And I was just like, well, I always wanted to help the homeless. I always wanted to, do something to serve the community, but I just thought that I had to have a lot of money to do it. So I kind of just like, I would just bat the thought out of my head. But in that moment, as I was laying on my bed and tears were coming to my eyes watching this video, and I was getting ready to continue the scroll, the Holy Spirit said to me, now's the time.
Wow.
And I was like, what? I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like, I'm getting ready to move in a couple of months. I need to get my life in order. I'm moving across the country. Like this, with what? With who? How? Like this doesn't make any sense. And as I like to call it, trying to negotiate with God. So at that time, I was laying there and I was like, God, this doesn't make any sense. I can't do this right now. Literally, in a still small voice, he goes, it's not about you.
Wow.
And I was
God
just
like that. There's no negotiation.
no, none. And the same happened with Moses when he tried to negotiate and was just like, God, why are you choosing me? Please choose somebody else. Please choose somebody else. But in that moment for me, I was just like, okay, well, let me be obedient. So I went and I shared the post on social media. And 24 hours later, Zakia saw my post that said, I'm going out on a leap of faith. I'm going to collect donations for whatever the time frame was. And I'm going to go distribute this to the women in my city. And if anybody wants to support, let me know. So she saw it and she was like, I want to do the same thing here in Philly. And I was like, okay, well, look, let's do it together. Let's collect donations the same time, and then we'll distribute right before Thanksgiving. So we had about 3 weeks in that time frame to collect donations and then distribute for like a holiday drive type thing. So we did that. And in 3 weeks, we collected donations, both monetary and product. And in that time frame, we raised over $300 in monetary donations. And I mean, hundreds of dollars worth of product donations. I had my friends come all the way from Brooklyn with trunks and cars full of donations. And I always tell people, like, my house looked like a CVS. Like it had like toiletries everywhere. And the same for her when she was in Philly. And so we created the kits. And again, now I didn't have a plan. I didn't know where I was going to see these women to distribute these kits. I didn't know where they were going to be. I didn't know who was going to help me. But the day that I said I was going to distribute, my friends came over and they helped me create these kits. And I was just like, well, I found a homeless shelter in Brooklyn. Let's go there. Let's see if anything is going to, take place or if we can. Well, I got there and the women were there. Wow. So we were able to distribute that day, that weekend, between Zakia and I, we were able to distribute over 60 kits or so. I had to be more than that because I know that mine was about 60 people. So, and then she did it in Philly also. So it had to be more than that around that time. And so many people saw what we were doing and they wanted to take part in that. And they just kept asking us, like, what's next? How can I take part in this? What can we do? How can I help? And from that point, from that very first distribution, we grew into a nonprofit. And in that time frame, Zakia and I grew into best friends. So when I tell you that all it was a social media post, I had no partners, no support at the time, no one to distribute to, no funds to do all of this, but he aligned it all in a matter of 3 weeks. That's how we got here.
It don't take God any time to do anything. Let me tell you, I am a testimony of that when it came to, and you said OPM, when it came to my OPM, Ordinary People magazine, just like that. I mean, why don't you do it? My testimony is way too long to share it at this particular point. But it don't take God any time, especially when you ask a question. It's kind of like my former. I don't want to say my former bishop, but the person that I sat under for a while, Bishop Brandon Porter. I was at his church, Greater Community Temple. He always say, if you see a need, then you need to feel the need. You can't say, oh, the floor needs sweeping, and then you keep moving. If you saw that the floor needs to be swept, then you need to get a broom.
Right. Wow.
That video that you watched got into your spirit, that you said you began to weep, and you was feeling it like, well, what do they do? How do they take care of themselves? So you're asking the questions,
Mm-hmm.
and God has said, now is the time. You're the person. You're the person to do it. And he provided everything for you. That's
Yeah.
an awesome testimony. But the best part is that you was obedient to it.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't just hear him and didn't do anything. You heard and you got busy. A
Yes.
lot of people don't do that.
Right.
They,
Right.
they don't do that. And so, where are you all now with our periods matter? So, with Zakia, let me back up. So, with Zakia being in Philly and you being, did you say Orlando
I
or
was
New
in New York at the time, and she was visiting Philly at the time.
York? Oh, so you all did it simultaneously at the same time in different states.
Yes.
How did you pull that off?
Constant communication, constantly like giving each other updates, how many donations she's got and where she's going to drop off and distribute. And, the same on my part, and then taking pictures so that we can share with each other and then also share with people, look, this is what's happening. And being a testimony to, what God called us to do in that moment, because she had the same conviction I had. And that's what allowed us to partner together, and I believe in divine partnerships, so in divine relationships. And so God knew that I needed the right person or the right people to come forth in order to come together to fulfill the vision that he already had for us. So that's how we did that. But then she flew back to Atlanta after the holidays, and then in December I moved down to Orlando.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So, in the process of doing all the distribution, Zakia came up with the name. Or
Yes,
was
so she came up with the name Our Periods Matter Inc. And there was really nothing to it. It's like, she was like, what should we, call this? And then I was like, I don't know, let's improvise. And then she came back to me. She was like, I got the name. And I was like, what is it? And she was like, Our Periods Matter Inc. And I was like, I love it. Let's call it that. It works.
That's amazing. That's really amazing to actually be partnered quickly with someone, and you guys just gelled so great together. And then your friendship grew in the midst of helping others.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's amazing. Okay, so now so now you all in two different places.
Mm-hmm.
How do you serve your communities? How are you doing it? Are you doing it city by city, or how do you serve now?
So what we did for quite some time prior to, the current nature of the world, we did what we call pack parties. And so Zakia or myself in our own cities, we would have a pack party in our local community. We would invite our friends or our peers to come over to wherever we are. We would invite them. First, we would have a conversation with them, like explain, so that they know why they're here, what they're supporting, and why we're doing it. So we would have them have open discussion, ask questions, and even educate them on some alternative menstrual hygiene products that are out there. And a lot of the times we learned a lot even from the women, because they didn't even know their bodies that well. So it became a twofold type of, and I'm going to get to that in a second, but we would do that. We would create the kits, and then we would go out with the group to distribute them. So then when we did the distribution, they were all directly to the women. There were times where it depended on the season where we would just go drop it off at the shelter. But the magic really happened when we got to sit with those women face to face, or stand with those women face to face and distribute those kits, because it was always an emotional interaction where those women would share their stories with us, or we would pray with them and things of that nature. And so that's really where the magic happened that was part two of where the magic happened. Part one was the interaction that we had with the people that attended our pack parties. And they're sharing their experiences as women and their menstrual health, and then turning around and having the interactions with the women who were receiving. So it was twofold. And what we did too, we ended up growing to the point where we have ambassadors in other cities.
Oh,
So we have an ambassador in New York, an ambassador in Philadelphia. Zakia was in Atlanta. I was in Orlando. I had an ambassador in Miami. And then we had our first West Coast ambassador in LA. So we ended up growing into those different cities, and our ambassadors did the same thing that we did. They had pack parties, and then they did the distribution.
that's great. You all move quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said you did some education, maybe speaking to the women in a different manner
Right.
in
Yeah.
a city.
Yes. So when we had our pack parties, the part that when we thought we were solving one problem, we realized that we were coming across another. And that came from when we were speaking to the women, we all noticed the trend. A lot of them didn't know either about certain types of disorders or alternative holistic ways to take care of yourself. Like if they had cramping, like, you could try this tea, or you can try, doing this method or this method. And if you want to go to 100% cotton products, these are the brands that we have. And we would literally go with these brands in our hand, and we would show them, and a lot of them never heard of them before. We know of the common brands that have been around for a really long time, but there's some new up and coming brands that utilize 100% cotton products. And so they didn't know about these things. So when we would go there, we would take it out, we would show them, and we'd pass it around the group, and they're like, I had no idea. But here's the other thing that we realized, is that when we were showing them these things and then sharing these things with them, and they were like, all of them, if not most of them, said, we didn't learn any of these things growing up. Then the question became, well, if no one taught you, then who's teaching the girls now? And
Yeah.
so we realized that there was a gap between the lack of knowledge that was being shared from generation to generation, and we wanted to close that gap. So, these are grown women that are sharing their experiences, but how can you teach somebody something that you never knew?
But when you think about it, they are grown women. They're in a shelter.
Oh, I
More
mean, like the attendees.
oh, the attendees. Okay,
Yes,
so the
yes.
attendees. So more than likely, their mind was probably on survival more than anything else. Although that's part of it. When you in such a in in some states, you only try to think about survival. You don't think about
Right.
other the small. You don't think about other things. And I can use my own self as an example. Uh, I don't want to say homeless, but I was homeless for about 2 years. I lived with my son, and they say you're homeless when you don't have your own address, right?
Mm.
But only thing at that time, other than being totally depressed from moment to moment, although I had a place to stay, and I'm with a relative, I still didn't have my own. So certain things, the only thing on my mind was like survival.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that comes first versus some other stuff. They said when
Right.
when you're depressed, you don't really think about hygiene, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And for sure, and that goes twofold, with the women that we were serving, and then the volunteers that came to serve with us. And so that's where my passion also came from, for wanting to work with the youth about educating them on alternative menstrual hygiene products that are safe, but basically teaching them safe menstrual hygiene care. Because when they're young, sometimes they would be ashamed to share their experience or what they're feeling, or why and they wouldn't know, and they wouldn't share, and they wouldn't speak up. So in the future, for sure. I mean, we definitely had things planned for this year, but this year took a different type of turn. But this year, we did plan on having an event for teenage girls, where we would have people come to speak, And then we would do activities with them and teach them things. It was more so educational, but we wanted to leave them better than the way we found them. And we didn't get a chance to do that because we're not allowed to have big groups.
Yeah.
But so, yes, that's where that came from.
So, in your moment of educating and showing the alternative, was there any one of the attendees that was a little bit open and willing to share a testimony, or were they totally engaging, embarrassed? I know you mentioned the word embarrassed. So, how did you all get? How did you make them feel comfortable? Because when you for any woman talking about your menstrual is like a dreaded conversation. The whole thing is a dreaded event that takes place every month. So, so how were you able to make your attendees feel comfortable in sharing?
Right. So when it came to the attendees who are the volunteers, when it came to them, they came open. They already came open, which was a beautiful thing because we're open about who we are and what we do. And so when we shared the information, like the flyer to what's coming up next, they came open. They came with their donations in hand, and they came open to conversation. And it was just always it was always easy. It was always easy. We didn't have to we didn't have to ask very many questions. A lot of people spoke up, and they shared that this was something great because they never had the opportunity to share or think about these things before.
Oh,
As it pertains to the women that we were serving, they were very grateful. They were very grateful. And again, also too, we didn't have to do much prompting. They were open to sharing their stories and their struggles and what they were experiencing and going through. As much as we didn't have to do. Yeah, it was pretty easy.
that's great. Because you don't really, I mean, when you see a homeless person or you're at a shelter, you don't ever think about uh, those things.
Hmm.
You don't think about how the person is feeling. It's always a negative, and I'm speaking from experience. It's like when life happens. I'm gonna put it like that. When life happens, because we never know how an individual um, became homeless or in a shelter. We don't know. We don't know their story, and that the negative connotation that happens when you see a person or when someone see a person, like in those situations, it's kind of it's heartbreaking. And when you experience it yourself, you become a little bit more sensitive. Because I ask God, why is this happening to me at this age in my 50s?
Mm-hmm.
And so that you will be able to identify or help someone else. And because I never really thought about it, and I think about people who don't think about them in that way. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying?
Hmm.
Because you see, someone may be on the corner, you just don't think about it. There's always something negative attached to it, like how did they get here? They don't ask the questions of how they get here.
Right.
They just, you know what I'm trying to say?
Mhm. Yeah.
Without
Yeah.
crying,
Yeah.
it becomes all I can say is life happens,
Right.
and when people see you, it's something negative. They
Hmm.
don't they don't have the passion.
Right. 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 Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you guys did an awesome thing to to serve your community in that way.
Yes. Thank you.
That's pretty awesome. So
Yeah.
what are your goals for the future? Where do you see your organization?
So we see ourselves going global. We do right now have a global initiative. There have been people that have reached out to us to bring our periods matter to their countries. Because again, although this may have been happening in our backyards, and here in the States, there are so many women and girls abroad that do not have resources at all.
Wow.
And and often, sometimes in certain cultures, it's frowned upon for them they're considered dirty, if they're on their menstrual at that time of the month, or like they can't take care of themselves at all. And so people have reached out to us over the past couple of years, and asked us if we can take part. Like, can we have a chapter of Our Periods Matter Inc. in this country? And our answer is always yes, but there are some things that we have to do logistically, and first and foremost, donations. Like the funds to actually upkeep the organization, because running a nonprofit organization is that requires a lot of supplies, or funds, or shipment, or things of that. Is not cheap. And so yes, we want to, but we definitely need the help and the support of our sisters, our communities, from everyone, to continue to expand this mission from country to country, from city to city. So our ultimate goal is to go global. And we do have a campaign running for that. On our website, there is a page where you can donate to we call it the OPM Global Initiative. And people can donate to that if they would like to. And 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 if they want to donate products, they can too. So we did actually just solidify a partnership with one of the like menstrual hygiene companies called Cora.
No.
Cora, and they provide, I believe it's 100% cotton pads, tampons, and they just sent us 25,000 tampons.
Wow. Did you say 25,000?
Yes, closer to 26,000.
Wow, that's great. That's
Yes.
great. And so that's a start for your pack parties.
Yeah. So what we're going to do with that, we're going to partner with, and because we can't go far and wide with it, we're going to focus centrally here in Orlando. So we're going to partner with other organizations that house these women that need these supplies, and we're going to distribute and partner with them, distribute here and there and here and there. Because 10,000 tampons can go a long way. So we definitely have to partner with people. And then when it's safe again, should we still have all of that in our inventory, when it's safe again, then we can venture out to get that to other places as well. But if there are organizations that are out of the city and they do want these supplies, I would be more than happy to ship them as well.
Oh, okay. So let me ask you this. What is inside your little package other than what do you put inside the package?
Yes. So what we collect: toothpaste, toothbrushes, hairbrushes, basically toiletries. So anything that somebody may need for hygiene. But what makes our kits different than any other hygiene kit is that we incorporate pads, wipes, unopened panties, tampons, but it depends on who's receiving it. So it depends on the city and all of that. And then, is there anything else I'm missing? Basically, we incorporate menstrual hygiene products. So on top of deodorant, toothpaste, toothbrushes, hairbrushes, socks, yeah, that's what we receive.
That's fantastic. Now, do you service outside of the shelter? Do you pick a particular group to service, or you just service women? Period.
Um, we service women in need, period. And this also depends on the city too. So for example, like in New York, the women, although they lived in a shelter, when we interacted with them, they were on the street.
Oh,
So we were able to be in that surrounding area and interact with them. Somewhere like LA, everyone's on the street, so they were able to interact with them right then and there. Um, and if you have somewhere like Atlanta that gets cold, or Philly that gets cold, or New York that gets cold at times, then if we have a partnership with that shelter, we're able to go in there and do a drop off distribution. So we
Okay.
have two methods of distribution. One is a live distribution where it's high touch with the person who's receiving, and then we have the drop off distribution, which is more so with the shelter.
That's great. That's
Mhm.
great. We thank you so much for serving your community. And that's what Ordinary People Magazine and OPM Live is all about. It's about talking to those that are doing the work, not just talking. What they say, you talk to talk and walk to walk, or however that goes.
Mhm.
You guys, we appreciate your service and serving your community. And I think we forget that our community is really outside of our little block. Our community reach far. We can go outside the block to service others. And
Mhm.
so I applaud you. OPM, or Near People Magazine, applaud you too for each and everything that you do for your communities. And Zakia, for our audience, Zakia was having a little trouble getting connected. She's outside of the country, but we thank her too for each and everything that she do and all the people that she serves where she is. So thank you guys so much. We have enjoyed speaking with you and learning about our periods matter. Our periods matter. I don't think we even think about that, but we thank you for that. And we thank you for being obedient to the word of God and moving forward, even in your negotiation. You took the leap and you went forward with it. What a great job. What a great job.
Thank you.
Is there anything that you would like to share with our audience, how they can connect with you? I know you shared how they can donate, but if you can give us that information again, and then we will also put it inside the comments.
Yes. So you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Our Periods Matter, just one word, Our Periods Matter. And we do have a Facebook group on Facebook as well. And then you can visit our website at ourperiodsmatter.org. And there you can find ways, you'll see the way to donate there as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jackie. And we appreciate you. And thank you again. So you
Thank you.
have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Thank you. You too. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.
So we thank Jackie and Zakia for the amazing work that they're doing through Our Periods Matter. And as we come to a close, we are continuing to read from Jesus Calling, Enjoying Peace in His Presence. And of course, this is by Sarah Young. And today being August the 22nd, and it reads, Trust me and don't be afraid. I want you to view trials as exercises designed to develop your trust muscles. You live in the midst of fierce spiritual battles, and fear is one of Satan's favorite weapons. When you start to feel afraid, affirm your trust in me. Speak out loud if circumstances permit. Resist the devil in my name, and he will slink away from you. Refresh yourself in my holy presence. Speak or sing praises to me, and my face will shine radiantly upon you. Remember that there is no condemnation for those who belong to me. You have been judged not guilty for all eternity. Trust me and don't be afraid, for I am your strength, song, and salvation. And the scriptures are James 4 and 7, Romans 8, verses 1 through 2, and Isaiah 12 and 2. And again, thank you so much for tuning in to OPM Live, which is an extension of Ordinary People magazine. And as we always say, love, peace, and increase. And be blessed. And until next time, have a wonderful weekend. Bye bye.